So, as you're beginning to explore the more metropolitan area of the Commonwealth, you may find some strange things, including but not limited to a late 18th century warship, the longest serving vessel in the US Navy, and now a giant robot house. Before you attempt this quest, I suggest you have an intelligence stat of at least 5 and be at least level 10 before you come in, because you are entering the first parts of the Metropolitan Commonwealth area, so there will be raiders and super mutants and other things that are a little tougher than bloatflies. It should also be noted that the only real safe companions to bring along with you while you're on this quest are Dogmeat and Curie. Other companions will either dislike a lot of the options you choose to get the Broadsider, or, in the case of some like Preston Garvey, the robots will just straight up turn hostile on them and you'll fail the quest by default. Upon approaching the ran-aground ship, a Mr. Handy will scan you and find out that you do have, in fact, a military service record, and thus you are allowed on the boat. Enter the USS Constitution by climbing into the ruins of the bank it hit, and heading up the stairs and finding a trap door in the bottom of the boat. Now, you're gonna see a lot of big scary robots, but no matter what you do not shoot any of them. They'll all be friendly to you except for the first mate, who, after some convincing from the captain, decides not to kill you, and to maybe use the accent. Climb above decks to meet the captain of the ship, a sentry bot who refers to himself as Ironsides. Fun fact, this is actually a reference to the USS Constitution's old nickname, Old Ironsides, which the USS Constitution earned during the War of 1812 when the HMS Guerrera's cannonballs just bounced off its advanced hull. The Guerrera was unable to do any serious damage to the Constitution whatsoever, while the Constitution damaged the HMS Guerrera so bad that they just burned it after the British surrendered. Captain Ironsides will explain to the player that the USS Constitution has been stuck on Weatherby Savings and Loan for a long time and is unable to carry out its mission. Before Ironsides can even start to ask you for help, however, a group of scavengers will start attacking the ship. Here's your opportunity to start playing with some of the fun features on the Constitution, like the cannonballs. Use ranged weapons to pick off the scavengers without having to leave the boat, and be extremely careful if you're going to use any sort of thrown weapon. Because while the robots on the ground outside of the boat do not seem to take friendly fire, if you accidentally bounce a grenade or a Molotov off the rigging at the edge of the boat, you will hit fellow robots and they will turn hostile on you, which will make you fail the quest and make you unable to receive the Broadsider at the end of it. Once all the excitement's died down, Captain Ironsides will ask you to help his shipmen in repairing the USS Constitution. The first person you'll be talking to is Bosun, who can be found below decks. He's a Mr. Handy with no arms or anything whatsoever. First thing that Mr. Bosun is going to ask you to do is to repair the power cables in various locations below decks. He supplies you with some fresh power cables found in a box nearby him, but if you have an intelligence of 3, you can just manually repair the cables without using the new ones. And then you can just keep the cables, which have a lot of really useful parts on them. And Bosun doesn't seem to mind if you just pocket the new power cables as long as the ship's running. After repairing the power cables, Bosun will ask you to also repair the power relay or find a replacement for it. If you have an intelligence of 5, you can just walk up to the thing and fix it with no extra parts. Otherwise, be prepared to spend a bit of caps to get a new one. Now that you've assisted Mr. Bosun in repairing various electrical parts of the ship, find Mr. Navigator, who will be hanging out just outside of the USS Constitution. He'll ask you to find the guidance chip for the ship, which was recently stolen by a couple scavengers. A short walk down the street will find you at the home of these scavengers, who also happen to be associated with the ones that attacked the USS Constitution when you were first coming aboard. They'll say that it wasn't their idea to attack and those people were going nuts. However, the robots are even crazier than those people, and they'd ask you to side with them. Under no circumstances should you agree to this. Siding with the scavengers makes it impossible to get the Broadsider, which is going to be a very handy weapon in the near future. Their ending is just not as cool as the robots. Just there's no reason to be friends with these people. However, Ironsides would rather you not kill them if you didn't have to, which honestly you could just gun them down. But if you want to be nice to Ironsides, all you gotta do is make sure that your companion is hanging out by the boat, walk into the back room where a mercenary is hanging out, where the guidance chip will be found inside of a file cabinet, and you can either use the desk if you have a high enough agility to sneak steal it, or, simply put, you can just grab it out of the desk and run like heck. These guys will give up chase after about 50 yards and sneaking. They aren't that determined to keep this chip. You're fine. As a further deterrent to make sure that you do not side with Mandy and the scavengers, even after you do all their dirty work for the rest of the quest, they'll just decide to try and kill you anyway and not split any of the share, which you won't be able to get anyway because there is no share. Head back onto the boat and put the untampered with guidance chip into the receptor on the main desk. Talk to the navigator again, who will now be hanging out by their guidance system, and he'll tell you that they also need a Poseidon radar transmitter, which is located far off. If you have an intelligence of 9 or above, you can just repair it manually without having to go. However, I found that the turbine that you're sent to, a short distance away from the USS Constitution, has no threatening enemies, the toughest of which will probably be a legendary bloatfly, which is pretty much saying, hey, I heard you had a bad day, so we're gonna give you a free legendary. There's quite a bit of good loot at the energy turbine, and also a copy of Tumblers Today. It's totally worth the short hike. Once you've got the radar transmitter up and running, however you chose to do it, you'll be told to talk to Captain Ironsides, who will tell you that they need to replace the turbopump bearings in order to get the rockets working. You'll receive the keys to the captain's quarters, which he cites he can't go in anyway, so no point in him having it, and you'll have access to the turbopump bearings that you need to repair. Unfortunately, you cannot intelligence your way out of this one, and you're going to actually have to go to the location listed. The 3 that seem to come up are the Corvega facility, the General Atomics plant, and Fort Hagen. For some reason, every time I have done this quest so far, I always get Fort Hagen. However, I'm not complaining because as long as you have the Scrounger perk, the Gen 1 synths that you have to fight in the area are a gold mine of fusion cells. Also, as a quick tip on Fort Hagen, because when I first did this quest it gave me considerable trouble, you don't have to go upstairs and fall through any holes in the roof like you would normally do in a typical Bethesda game quest. Just make a right when you get into the main hallway by the Protectron and wrap your way around to get into the final room. That's going to save you a lot of stress later on, since you will have to come back here later for the story. Once you've found the bearings at your respective area, head back to the ship and put the bearings in their proper receptacle in the captain's quarter. Piece of advice before you talk to Ironsides? Save your game. You're about to get into a really big fight. As you talk to Ironsides, the scavengers will have launched a full assault, throwing everything they have at the USS Constitution. If they get to the top deck, it will be considered a failed quest. However, in all the times I have done and redone this quest for the sake of this video, they have never even gotten onto the boat in general. Just keep firing the ship's cannons and using ranged weapons to take out people in buildings, and you'll have no problem clearing this out. It is a bit of a long fight though. Talk to Ironsides after the fight's over, and he'll reward you with the Broadsider, an amazing early game weapon for the fact that you only need Gun Nut rank 1 to fully upgrade it, albeit a lot of parts in the process, and great for taking out enemies in the near future, especially when liberating the castle. Ironsides will now ask one more thing of you, which is to go and flip the auxiliary power outside the ship so that they can launch. Don't forget to loot all the scavengers you just assaulted, because there's going to be at least 2 legendaries among their ranks. Once you flip the switch, the Constitution will launch from the bank and return to the skies. I'm going to make you do the quest yourself to see the ending of this, however, be sure to go to the Constitution's final resting place and make sure that you complete the quest fully and get a couple bonus rewards while you're at it. That does it for this quest. Be sure to like the video if you found it helpful and share it with people you know that are having trouble with this quest. Also, don't forget to subscribe to see more Fallout 4 quest guides and whatever else I can find in the near future. Thanks for watching.